What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my Mississippi State Bulldogs preview for 2016. So talking about a team last year that went 9-4 overall, 4-4 in conference, and honestly had a pretty good year. This is a team that rounded out the year with a victory over NC State in the Belk Bowl and is looking to continue some of that success into 2016. So let's start out with the first of my three key players, and I'm going to start with the presumed starting quarterback, Nick Fitzgerald. Him and Elijah Staley are still in a quarterback battle, but my personal opinion, and it seems like just general consensus, Nick Fitzgerald is the favorite to take the spot this year. I think he is the more talented quarterback, and I could definitely see him being one of the breakout stars in the SEC in 2016. He has a talented group of receivers to throw to, led by Fred Ross, and I think he's set up for a decent amount of success leading forward. So my second key player is the starting running back, and that is senior Brandon Holloway. Holloway is going to be backed up by another pretty good running back in Harris Williams. I'm not 100% sure if Holloway is still going to be the starter by the end of the season. This is why he's somewhat of a key player for me. In my mind, a lot of the offense hinges on the running back's success, not just Holloway, but since he's the presumed starter, and he is a talented starter at that, he's going to have to be successful this year if Mississippi State itself wants to be successful. This is the type of offense that's going to have a good balanced run game and pass game. And again, right now I think it's hinging more on the run game. Fitzgerald is a good dual threat quarterback, so he can take some of that pressure off Holloway, but again, the running backs are going to have to be there. So my third key player, moving over to the defensive side of the ball, and I've got the defensive end, A.J. Jefferson. Again, in my mind, one of the most talented players along this defense, a defense that is going to be facing a lot of new changes. Pretty much an entirely new staff. They bring in new defensive coordinator, Peter Sermon, running a 3-4 scheme now, and joined in by a couple talented players alongside him. Nose tackle Nick James, I think, can be one of the better defensive tackles in the SEC. He'll be starting opposite, Jefferson will be starting opposite Torrey Dale. So they are three seniors along the defensive line. So my first of two X factors, and a little bit what I talked about earlier, replacing Dak Prescott. Actually, I didn't really talk about replacing Dak Prescott that much, but you lose one of the most dynamic players in the country. I can think of maybe 4 or 5 other players that had as big of an impact on their teams as Dak Prescott had on Mississippi State the last 2 years. Mississippi State has seen tremendous success the last 2 years compared to what they normally expect to. Talking about a 9-4 record in 2015, one that they were presumed to maybe have a little bit of a down year after a 2014 season where they were ranked number 1 at one point, finishing the season with 10 wins. And this is all happening in the ultra-competitive, ultra-talented SEC West. Again, I have a lot of faith in Nick Fitzgerald. I think he is already one of the better quarterbacks in the SEC, considering the SEC is in the best conference for quarterbacks. But you also have to take into account that nothing's for sure yet. He hasn't been a long-term starter in his career yet, so you just kind of have to assume. So my second X factor is the new defense. Again, talked about it a little bit earlier with the new defensive coordinator coming in. Pretty much an entire new staff is coming in. They're going to be relying on some players that are somewhat new faces with Mississippi State. Leo Lewis at linebacker, redshirt freshman, is going to have to come in and do a very good job at the linebacking, at the inside linebacker spot opposite Richie Brown. Richie Brown should be good this year as well. Cedric Giles is going to have his hands full leading the secondary this year. Tolando Cleveland, another guy that can take some of the pressure off, but they do have 2 younger players starting at safety, Brandon Bryan and Mark McLaurin. So, moving to my trap game for Mississippi State, and I think it's going to be Kentucky. Now, there are very few games that I think Mississippi State will actually be favored in the SEC this year. They get a pretty easy draw out of the SEC East. Honestly, I mean they get to play South Carolina and Kentucky. They get to avoid Florida, Tennessee, and Georgia. But the Kentucky game is at a point where it's kind of like at a down point in the season, and they do have to go on the road. And Kentucky's not a bad team at that either. They might actually be able to hang very, very close with Mississippi State this year. So my biggest game for Mississippi State is going to be the second to last game of the season against Arkansas. And here's my thinking on this. Mississippi State and Arkansas, at least in my mind and a lot of conference previews for the SEC, especially the SEC West, have them as the bottom two teams. Now, even if you're a bottom two team in the SEC West, you're still probably pretty good. But if you want to even be able to contend for a bowl game this year and get into that middle of the pack, then you're going to have to beat Arkansas to do that. We'll see if they're able to contend at an even higher level. They get to play LSU, third game of the season. Auburn is their fifth game of the season. So if they can get higher than that, then that's great. But get into my record prediction for Mississippi State. And I think they will be the lone team in the SEC West to not go bowling this year. I just think they're a young team, breaking in a new quarterback. We'll see how Nick Fitzgerald plays this year. This has been a team, obviously because of Dak Prescott, very reliant on the quarterback the last couple of years. I think Fitzgerald by his senior year can be a stud and can lead Mississippi State to maybe 7, 8, 9 win seasons once again. But I think this year is going to be a little bit of a break-in process at that quarterback spot. So that pretty much does it from a Mississippi State preview for 2016. I'll be coming back later today or tomorrow with my UNC preview to wrap up this whole group of previews for today. So that's pretty much it. See ya.